I'm Terry Owens. On this edition of MTA Commuter Connections, we'll visit the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of African American History in Baltimore for a look at some of the wonderful things they've got planned for Black History Month. Also coming up, some passenger safety tips, and we'll answer your transit-related questions. All ahead on MTA Commuter Connections. Welcome to the MTA Commuter Connections. I'm Terry Owens. For this edition, we're on location at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of African American History in Baltimore, where Maryland and our country's history is chronicled and on display. With February being Black History Month, this museum is definitely a place to bring the entire family for a day or several days of enlightenment and fun. Dr. Skip Sanders is the museum's director, and he joins us now with a look at what we'll find on a visit here. Dr. Sanders, good to see you.
Good to see you always,
Terry. Thank you so much for inviting us in.
Cultural home.
Yes. Now, for people who are not familiar with the museum, give us a sense of what they can expect to find here.
Well, they can find, first of all, one of the real architectural treasures in the city. It's a magnificent building, as you can see. 82,000 square feet. Over 15,000 square feet of exhibition space. And we have a permanent exhibition on the third floor, which of course really details Maryland's iconic legacy of African American history. Where we are now in our temporary exhibition hall, this is an exhibition area that changes on I guess a few times a year, and we bring in special kinds of exhibitions, such as this magnificent one on display now.
We'll talk about Mr. Collier's work in just a moment,
yes.
But you know, as you said, every day is a celebration of African American history here at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. But talk about some of the things you've got planned for February. Well,
I would say the two anchors for February would be the exhibition that we've just opened that we're going to talk about. The other one is February 23rd, Saturday. Verizon has been a real friend of the Reginald F. Lewis for years, and they always sponsor an open house, which is free to everyone. And with that open house, they plan all kinds of surprising events and activities. So if those are the two sort of anchor events that go on, in between those events, there's several exciting things. We have a kind of speaker series called Generations, and we also have Saturday's Child, which is for children. So on one of the Saturdays, we're going to have Janice the Griot come in and do folk tales with our children, and then she'll talk about how African Americans embedded values, cultural values, in those folk tales about animals. It will end with children singing, of course, and doing some folk tale creating of their own. So we've got exciting events like that.
We'd be remiss if we did not say something about the man for whom the museum is named. Talk about Reginald Lewis and his legacy.
What a great legacy. Mr. Lewis did more in the 50 years of his life than most of us would do in 2 lives.
Wow.
And he was a native Baltimorean, grew up initially not far from here on Dallas Street, a little small street in Baltimore. Came from a family of very modest means, like most of us, and grew to be basically a billionaire by the end of his life. He did a leveraged buyout of Beatrice, a company which was largely based in Europe. But before that, he'd done a $22.5 million purchase of the McCall Pattern Company, and actually made that business so strong and so profitable, he reaped like a $90 million profit on it. So if you're an entrepreneur or businessman, he is your icon.
You have to know that story. Now, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I want you to touch on the exhibit that we're standing in now. Mr. Collier, Brian Collier?
Yes, I'd be happy to. You know, we say that we really focus on the iconic people that have come out of Maryland and influenced our culture and our history. Brian Collier is one. He was born in Pocomoke, Maryland, on our eastern shore, not too far from Ocean City. Was really influenced by the works of people like Ezra Jack Keats in terms of his childhood reading A Snowy Day, Harold and the Purple Crayon. So when he grew up, he knew what he wanted to do, and as you can see, he works magnificently by doing a blending of collage and watercolor. It's really masterful. And you can tell his themes as you move through this exhibit of over 40 of his works, which are illustrations for children's books. And he's also an award winner. As a matter of fact, just last week he won the Coretta Scott King 2000.
Get out of here.
Yeah, 13 award, okay, for illustrations. He loved doing urbanscapes, so you notice the brownstones that are on this part. Did stories based on our heroes, John Lennon right behind us, but also Langston Hughes, President Barack Obama. So just the great people that have influenced, you know, our lives and our history.
Good. So
yeah.
February going to be, as every day is, but February going to be a very special month.
February
here at
very
the
special
Reginald
because
F.
we're
Lewis
even
Museum.
more alive. We'll be worn out by March 1st.
And we love it, of course, because it's right off a number of transit lines. The metro's
Yes.
right up the way. There are a number of bus lines. that go right
Circulator
behind.
stops right here, so no excuse not to come and visit your cultural home. We make it a homecoming when you come in.
Fantastic. Dr. Sanders, thank you so much for allowing us in.
Thank you. You're always welcome. It's your home.
Okay, thank you. In observance of Black History Month, we recently sat down with one of MTA's first African-American transit operators, who later became one of the agency's first black managers. His name is Bertram Daly. The story Mr. Daly tells is an interesting one that's part of MTA's history and transit's rich history.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around.
The year was 1955. Public transportation in Baltimore was still being run by the privately owned Baltimore Transit Company, and the newly married Bertram Daly needed a job. The Carver grad had already been rejected once by the BTC, but the company had broken the color line years earlier, and Daly's wife urged him to try again. Advice that paid off.
I started as a streetcar / bus operator. And I worked out of Belvedere Barn, up on Belvedere, right near Ricestown Road. And that barn was a combination, streetcars and buses. So sometime in the morning, I would operate a streetcar. And then my second part, in the evening, I would drive a bus.
While newspaper headlines chronicle the hiring of tan drivers, Daly says he was merely grateful for a job that allowed him to provide for his family.
When you enjoy whatever you do in life, you have no complaints. Sure. And I enjoyed people, I enjoyed the job.
It was that attitude and a prank by coworkers that led Daly into management.
I told them point blank, if the man offered that job to me, I would take that job.
That boast was relayed to Daly's boss, and in 1963, the same year as the historic March on Washington, Daly moved into management.
My greatest achievement is trying to encourage other young people to come MTA's way. Yes. And not only come to MTA, but come to MTA with the spirit of doing your level best in whatever position you have.
Up next, a look at what our region's transit police are doing to address a growing crime problem. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles. Everybody bring it in. I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out. How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork? I help keep kids in school. Good. And that's the name of the game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
So, you're looking for help with your mortgage. Worried about foreclosure? Messy stuff.
We're a mortgage rescue company. We can help you keep your house. All we ask for in return is that you submit to our plans for galactic domination.
We're not so different, you and I. Sign.
Yeah, this is not what we...
Have you met my henchman, Radu?
Nice to meet you.
Radu?
We're just gonna... We'll see you later.
If you're facing foreclosure, make sure you're talking to the right people. Speak with HUD-approved housing counselors free of charge at 888-995-HOPE.
Turning a 20-foot wall into a canvas takes vision. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Transit police across the country are grappling with a new problem. Thieves are stealing cell phones and electronic devices at an alarming rate.
They seem to be everywhere you look. Cell phones and other electronic devices being used non-stop by commuters. They're a great way for people to stay connected and entertained, but they've also become a target for thieves.
Anything that's worth any money, it's not surprising.
What the world's coming to, it's getting crazy out here.
With the theft of electronic devices on the rise both locally and nationally, police across the country have stepped up enforcement efforts. MTA police have launched a campaign designed to educate passengers.
It was recognized that there's a national epidemic for the theft of electronic devices.
MTA police are taking their safety message directly to commuters with brochures and signage that provide sound advice on how to safeguard their valuables.
If it's valuable to you, then it's valuable to someone else.
Police are urging commuters to keep cell phones or other electronic devices secure, to be discreet when making calls or listening to music, to password protect your cell phone, and to keep a record of the make, model, and serial number.
The campaign is simple. Play it safe. Stow away your electronic devices, all of them, not just hold it in your hand or put it in your breast pocket.
And customers say they will heed the warnings.
Just keep my phone in my pocketbook.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have it all in the open now that I know.
Cell phone snatch and grab crimes are not only an issue for the MTA, it's a crime police agencies everywhere are grappling with. We are joined now by MTA Police Lieutenant Kelly Holman and Lieutenant Greg Hanna of the Washington Area Transit Authority for a more expansive look at how this is being addressed. Lieutenant Hanna, I'd like to start with you. When did your agency first begin to notice a spike in these kinds of crimes?
Well, there's always a up and down flow of spikes in electronic devices being stolen. Generally, it's centered around holidays. So we just had a Christmas holiday, and so we anticipated that coming out of the holiday that there may be a spike and uptick in electronic devices being stolen.
And what kind of message are you sending to WMATA passengers, many of them MTA passengers, about how to protect themselves?
Well, we're passing on a lot of safety tips. I mean, the transit police is aggressively addressing the issues, but we also need the help from our public and our customers to do different things to try not to make themselves a victim of crimes. So some of the things that we're doing in our campaign is making regular announcements in the station. We're making regular announcements in the buses. We also have flyers and campaigns that we're putting out that the officers are actually going out to the stations and meet and greet sessions with our customers and passing these items out and making them more aware. If we see someone that looks like they could be susceptible of a crime, we make sure that they get the literature. We also have had a lot of success with our crime suppression team, which is kind of a undercover bait operation in which the officers disguise themselves as a decoy, as if they're a victim of a crime. And we've been very successful with arrests in that area of our deployment strategy. So we're doing a lot of different things to make sure that the public is educated and making sure that they're aware of their surroundings and not become a victim of a crime.
Lieutenant Holman, this has got to be frustrating not only for the police but passengers as well. These cell phones and other devices have become so much a part of our daily lives, and people kind of take it for granted that they can use these things whenever and wherever they choose. But what's the problem there?
The problem is the criminal element sees that as an opportunity to take that item then you become a victim. Commuters tend to relax to and from work. They use that opportunity to use their electronic devices, and then in that one instance, that's when they become that victim.
So what should a person do if they find themselves victimized? How do you respond? Do you try and go after somebody that's taking your property?
Absolutely not.
What do you do?
The MTA police encourages everyone, first of all, to have their safety is paramount. We want you to relinquish the property. Don't fight for the property. At the very least you can do is obtain the conveyance information that you're on that particular day. That will be the bus number, the coach number or train number, the badge number of the operator if possible, and the actual station that the incident occurred in. And then to follow that up, if you have an iPhone or some type of electronic device that has a serial number, you want to record that number in a different location, just in case you are the victim of a crime. That number can be utilized to help try and find your property. You also would like to download any type of tracking application that is available for your device, and remember the password for that tracking application so that when the police do come, they can try to use that to try and locate your property.
What's the recovery rate, Lieutenant? Are you able to get much of this stuff back, or is it once it's gone, it's gone?
Well, in some cases, in some instances, we have been able to recover the devices, or at least at the very least find a location or general vicinity where the suspects are located. I mean, just as Lieutenant said, I mean, we experience the same type of things in our system, and we convey the same messages. Those GPS tracking portions of the phone electronic devices are extremely helpful. If we know that those things are active and that people actively monitor those things on their devices, our detectives are usually pretty quick with being able to utilize that technology to try to track the suspect or the movement of that electronic device. But we have been pretty successful with recovering, but you know, it doesn't happen quite often.
And we want to be clear here. This is not just a Baltimore issue. This is not just a Washington issue. We're now seeing this on transit properties across the country.
Yes, we
absolutely.
are, especially in New York City. New York City has put out that their spike in crime is directly related to electronic devices.
Really?
Yes.
And what are thieves doing with these things?
Well, some of the things that we have been experiencing in the transit system, I'm sure that MTA has experienced as well, is that they'll go to some type of retailer that does some illegal cloning of the phones, and they'll flip the phones back over and into another owner, or they may do something with a chip inside of it and try to reactivate the phone. There has been recent legislation that has been passed, and we're hoping to be very successful with it across the country, which is called bricking, which essentially makes the phone render useless after it's reported stolen and can never be reactivated again. It goes on what's kind of like a blacklist. And so with that just starting to roll out, we're starting to campaign our efforts towards that to make customers aware of that. Hopefully it's very successful. If people want to know more information about it, they should contact their wireless provider.
I was going to say, is that something we can encourage our customers to call their congressman about if that's legislation we want to see on the books?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And the message to customers is if you are on an MTA system or a WMATA system or anywhere out in public, to safeguard your devices. Think twice before you pull it out, and always be mindful of your surroundings. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, on January 21st, Inauguration Day, hundreds of people left their cars at home and climbed aboard MARC train to the nation's capital to witness and be a part of the historic inauguration of America's 44th President, Barack Obama. Commuter Connections spoke with a group of MARC riders just before their exciting trip to this historic event.
Train E1, please begin to form a line at gate 11E.
They started arriving well before the first MARC train would leave Baltimore's historic Penn Station. People from across the country headed to Washington to witness history. The inauguration of President Barack Obama on the federal holiday honoring the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I wanted to be part of history, something I could tell my grandchildren and pass it on for generations to generations.
We really like President Obama and what he stands for, and think he's helping move this country in the right direction and looking out for the welfare of everybody, not just those at the top, and that's important to me and my family, so that's why we came.
They came from as far away as Palo Alto, California, Shreveport, Louisiana, and Newton, Massachusetts. For most, this would be their first time riding a MARC train, but others knew this was the best way to get to Washington.
I went to the inauguration in 2009, and I took MARC train.
So I knew that was the only way I wanted to go again.
Anthony Palmer of Baltimore is a regular MARC customer.
This was option number one. It's easier, it's easy access, it's a great opportunity to take MARC train, and it's the best way to travel.
The rare holiday service provided travel options for thousands of people on the Penn and Brunswick lines. Tickets were sold online at the MTA transit store and at select stops along the lines.
First we was looking for the Metro train and we just happened to find a MARC train on accident, but then it was real easy to look for a ticket on there, so we went and got it.
My daughter rides it frequently, so she said that's the way to go. So we got the commemorative ticket, and it's awesome.
And they're beautiful. They're keepsake tickets. I'm going to put in a photo album and keep it forever.
Up next, it's our Ask the MTA segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Maybe you see something suspicious, but you don't want to get involved. It's nothing, you think. Can you be sure? If you see something, say something. Report suspicious activity to local authorities.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home where I belong. I'm home, and I love it. I'm home, where I belong.
It's always nice to come home. But these days, many Americans are at risk of foreclosure and losing their homes. Making Home Affordable is a free program from the U.S. government that has already helped over 1 million struggling homeowners like these. And we want to help you.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home.
Find out now what your options are. Go to makinghomeaffordable.gov or call 1-888-995-HOPE. The sooner you act, the better chance we can help you.
I'm home, where I belong.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me.
Feed the pig.
And welcome back, everybody. Time now for our Ask the MTA segment. And here to answer your questions is MTA Deputy Director of Engineering, Vernon Hartzog. Vernon, welcome.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks
Pleasure to be
so much
here.
for coming in. All right, now here's our first question.
Hi, my name is Joel. I have a question. How do you guys prepare for harsh weather conditions?
The MTA has standard operating procedures that, depending on the type of inclement weather that's forecasted, either snow or heat or ice or high wind conditions, we will deploy additional personnel. Some examples include additional linemen to repair catenary problems, additional maintenance of way workers to prepare track problems or to clear down trees, additional bus operators to operate bus bridges in the event of a problem with our rail services. We also have the service quality individuals who will patrol the service areas and advise the control center concerning advisories and other hazards. We may also, depending on the severity of the weather, activate our Emergency Operations Center, which is a 24-hour facility that's staffed by senior management, including myself if necessary, to maintain management over the disruptions during the inclement weather.
And this is the time of year when we see those issues, everything from trees down and snow, etc. All right, now to our next question.
My name is Sam Tano, and I live in Eldersburg, and I take a train from Owings Mill to State Center to go to work, and it breaks down quite often. And my question is it possible to make sure it doesn't break down as often?
The key to minimizing service disruptions is to maintain the system and the vehicles in a state of high reliability. To that end, we have recently performed an overhaul of all of the truck assemblies of the Metro rail cars. The truck assemblies include the wheels, axles, traction motors, gearboxes, and other equipment. In addition to this, to maintain the reliability of the system itself, we've recently overhauled all 14 traction power substations that are along the Metro system. There are other measures that we have in place, such as upgrading the signal system in the future, as well as other efforts to maintain the system in a state of high reliability and safety.
Just a huge undertaking to keep all of these many different parts going, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I think there's another question.
My name is Matt, and I would like to ask why on the escalators on the MTA system we do not have a stand right, walk left policy as in DC.
That's a good idea. Actually, we've just begun to implement that. Our safety department publishes an escalator safety tips brochure, and the policy of stand right, walk left was recently added to that brochure.
Excellent. And I think we've got another question. Yes.
My name is Joshua Smith. I'm from Upper Park Heights, and my question for MTA is why do the trains close at 12? Why can't they stay open all night?
This is partially an issue of economics. We always have to balance service demand versus the costs of operating the additional service, which in this case would be additional operators to operate more shifts. Also, in addition to this, we have to have a certain amount of downtime to perform maintenance to keep the system reliable and operating safely.
Great, thank you. And I think there's another question.
My name is Charlotte Carter. Whenever you use advertisement on the elevators, can you please put it on one side of the elevator so that the customer can see what's going on the outside?
That's a very good point. This has been flagged as a safety issue and will be reviewed by the Executive Safety and Security Committee and quite possibly changed.
All right, and now to our next and last question we received by email from Vanessa Granell of Silver Spring, and she writes, I live in Silver Spring and ride the DC transit system here often. When I visit relatives in Baltimore, I've traveled on the MTA. I've always wondered whether the two systems connect with one another to allow for a smooth and seamless trip from one area to the other. How or where might one make the connection between DC Transit and the MTA?
One possible trip option would be to board the Washington Subway Metro System Red Line at Silver Spring Station, take that to Union Station, then board the MARC train into Baltimore. Be aware the MARC train only operates on weekdays.
Okay. We might also hop on the B30 and head over to BWI, hop on the light rail, and then come into town that way.
That's another option as well.
All right. Vernon, thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
All right. If you've got a question you would like to ask the MTA, visit us online at mta.maryland.gov or check us out on Facebook or Twitter. Again, this is Black History Month here at the Reginald Lewis Museum, and we would love to have you come down and visit the facility. This is a wonderful time of the year to be here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Commuter Connections. Take care, everybody.